You're back with us on America's Forum, the us in this case being Morgan Thompson joining me, J.D. Hayworth. Morgan, it's good to have you here today.
Thank you. Always great to be here behind the news desk. So tell me, they called you a lawmaker, but it's not just so simple. Take us through the process a little bit.
Well, we all learned in civics that the Congress passes bills that the president signs into law, but it's after that where things can get tricky when the different executive agencies try to implement the law by drafting regulations. And sometimes the will of Congress can be short-circuited, and that's one of the problems. Sometimes the executive agencies will move unilaterally saying, oh gee, regulations need to be spelled out a little bit more, and that can create some problems and some controversy. And Morgan, we have seen that on Capitol Hill in recent days, and there's a new item here in the news that warrants our attention. The IRS says it will rewrite its controversial regulation limiting political activity by nonprofits. This move comes after the agency received a record number of negative comments on their proposed regulation. The new rules have been discussed ever since the agency came under fire for its targeting of Tea Party and other conservative groups. Joining us now via telephone, attorney Cleta Mitchell from Washington. Again, for purposes of full disclosure, Morgan, I have to remind everyone that once upon a time, Cleta Mitchell was my legal counsel in terms of politics during my days in the House of Representatives. Cleta, it is great to have you back with us here on America's Forum.
It's always good to be with you, J.D.
So bottom line on this, Cleta, people reacted, public comments started coming in. You talked to us about these proposed regulations and the inherent danger. In terms of political wins and losses, is this a win for conservative grassroots groups?
Well, of course, it's a win. Because people got involved and let the IRS know that we were not going to put up with these regulations that they were trying to cram down our throats, they had no option but to do something. They had to pivot. So, yes, it's obviously a win.
Now, you called this current measure a half step. What did you mean by that?
Well, because what I wish they would say, or what I wish they would have said is, we realize that people feel very strongly about this, and we're not going to issue any regulations on this. And I wish they would have said, if we do decide that we need regulations, we're going to have hearings first and hear what people have to say, and we're not going to continue this process in secret behind closed doors. So that's the part that worries me, is what are they going to do next? I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, unfortunately. I think they've proven they're not to be trusted. And I also have some questions. Today is the day that the government is supposed, that the IRS and Treasury are supposed to respond to the lawsuit that Tea Party patriots filed against the IRS and Treasury on tax day, April 15th, demanding that they turn over all of the documents and related materials that describe how those regulations were developed in the first place. And today's the day they're supposed to answer. I just find it curious that they issued this press report at 5 o'clock yesterday. I'm hoping they're not getting ready to engage in shenanigans in our lawsuit as we're trying to get the materials to say, where do these proposed regulations come from in the first place? So, look, yes, it's a win, but we are not going to sleep and turn over and not pay attention to what they're doing, because they are out to curtail our political speech.
So if today's the deadline for your lawsuit and you don't hear anything from the federal government, what happens next? What's the next step?
Well, that if they don't answer, but they surely will answer the federal lawsuit, we would move to hold them in default and have the judge just issue an order that they turn over all the documents. And if they don't do that, then they could be in contempt of court. Okay. But then again, we've seen the IRS top brass are pretty arrogant about their obligations under the law. So we'll see what they do today.
And Cleta, you made mention of the fact, when we're back to the original story and this announcement that came yesterday about 5 o'clock Eastern time, or Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern time, that one of the classic moves in Washington is to dangle a story, let the attention get out there, and then falter on something that is due. So I think your wariness about just what the IRS or its attorneys may do is warranted. Let's get back to the original story at hand that's come down. Here's what the IRS spokesman said about this move, and let me quote it to you now. Consistent with what the commissioner has previously stated, it is likely that we will make some changes to the proposed regulation in light of the comments we have received. Given the diversity of views expressed and the volume of substantive input, we have concluded that it would be more efficient and useful to hold a public hearing after we publish the revised proposed regulation. Cleta, from this comment, sounds like they're up to regulatory shenanigans, but they're going to wait to at least hear from some people. Or am I reading this the wrong way?
Well, I think what they're doing, look, what they did in the first round was that they spent more than a year and a half, in secret, developing and drafting the regulations that they issued the day after Thanksgiving. And then we, countered with all of the comments from citizens and organizations all over the country. Now then they're saying, okay, they issue a press statement on Thursday of Memorial Day weekend, and JD, as you well know, Washington really shuts down starting Thursday afternoon of Memorial Day weekend and Memorial Day recess. Congress leaves, everybody leaves. So they issue a statement Thursday, 5 o'clock, of Memorial Day recess. And what they're saying is we're going to rewrite these rules, and then we're going to have a hearing. I was able to confirm that they are going to have a comment period again, but they haven't issued any of the, we don't know the standard that they're using. We don't know, they certainly paid no attention to court decisions and the First Amendment rules and requirements for government suppression of political speech and activities. And I have no reason to think that they're going to change their stripes and now all of a sudden be concerned about the First Amendment and protecting First Amendment rights. I think they're just going to issue something that's going to be equally deplorable, and we're going to have to fight them again, and then we'll probably have to sue them. To me, that's what we're going to have to do.
It just keeps coming back to secrecy. It's secrecy, secrecy. It really makes you wonder what they're trying to hide because, we're only going to make this public after we publish our findings. Why all the secrecy?
Well, because the things that they do and the things that they're trying to do cannot withstand the scrutiny and the light of day. That's why they did it off plan. Every agency, every federal agency is supposed to publish, and you could go on the website of any federal agency, and you're supposed to be able to look and see what regulations they're working on.
Right.
Well, except that they didn't do that, and they didn't add this rulemaking to their plan until 2 days before they issued it.
How are you supposed to comply with federal laws if they're not even published as to what they are?
I know they don't even tell you that they're working on regulation.
Well,
so now we don't even know who's on the drafting committee. I can tell you that unless they change the people who are doing the drafting, we've seen their mindset by looking at these regulations. We've seen it. And unless they change out the people and put some people on there who have a different perspective on political speech and activities, we're going to get the same deplorable proposal.
Well,
I think.
Cleta, as I listen to this and understanding the political theatrics that are out there, now with the time to reformulate and invite public comment again, doesn't this just set up a scenario? Grassroots conservatives have fought this. Now the usual suspects, the Alinskyeites, those on the left, will mount up. I don't know if they'll be coordinated with the IRS, but when there is another public hearing, I would say get ready for some street theater from the left to offer a PR counterattack, and all the usual suspects, the Occupy crowd and that whole gang showing up in support of the IRS redrafting a rule with the intent they originally had to circumvent conservative groups. Am I just being too cynical about this, Cleta?
No, that's what they did the first time, and we know that left-wing groups went over and met with the top people at the IRS and demanded that they issue regulations like they issued last November. So no, you're just stating the facts, and we are going to have to be on our toes. We're going to have to be watching everything, and we're going to have to participate in this process to the very nth degree. And then I predict that when all is said and done, and that they're going to issue some regulations that are not going to be acceptable to those of us who believe in freedom of speech and who support the First Amendment. And look, I think we're going to have to see. Look, you understand that right now that there is a bill, there's a Senate Joint Resolution in the Senate, sponsored by
we'll keep
Tom
an eye
Udall.
on it. Unfortunately, we're running short on time. We appreciate your time. We'll have you back real soon, and we're coming right back.
What if I told you that you could reverse